Hello and welcome back to the Your Life Your Way show. I'm very excited to say Todd is back.
Yay.
Todd Smith was with us recently. Todd, hi, welcome back to the show. I'm so happy to have you back for part 2.
Thank you, Kathleen. It's great to be here.
And I would like to just say a little bit about Todd. If you missed his first episode of The Highly Sensitive Person, please go back to that podcast episode and catch the first part, which is about doing the inner work. And I will have Todd give us a little bit of glimpse into that inner work and how it rolls into the outer work. But first, my guest today, Todd, is the creator and host of the highly popular podcast, Stress Management for Highly Sensitive People. Todd has helped hundreds of HSPs break free from the chronic stress and emotional overload using a powerful inquiry-based process that brings lasting peace without, I love this part, without needing the world around you to change. He shares with us how being an HSP affects our relationships, our self-trust, our emotions, but how you can also find inner peace, outer balance, and true, I love this part too, true inner freedom, because that is just, gosh, aren't we all seeking that? Or we should all be seeking that. Todd, thank you so much. I'm so glad to have you back. And I really so enjoyed our first episode talking about the highly sensitive person. I did take the quiz myself, and Todd will tell us a little bit about that as well. But there's inner work and there's outer work. And today I know you're going to bring to us information and enlighten us on the outer work. But could you start by just giving us a little peek back into the inner work first?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, inner work is the foundation for stress management because the roots of stress start in that deepest part of ourselves, that part where we are actually in control, but we don't think we are because we're so focused on everything outside of us. And the beauty of inner work is that even when you can't control things on the outside, you can always do inner work and find some space, find some breathing room, find new perspective that gives you just openness on the inside. And that's like really, that is the quintessential tool for stress management for anyone, absolutely. But for highly sensitive people, I especially love this tool because we tend to be interested in that as well. So inner work, what I mean specifically, it can be a number of things, but one of the tools that I use is called the work of Byron Katie, which is a way to question stressful thoughts. And so you take a stressful situation, you find the stressful thought, and you question it, and you kind of play with it to see if possibly the very opposite of what you were thinking could also be true, and it opens something inside, and it just gives you this like new perspective on the same situation. Other things can also create that space on the inside. Meditation is one of those things, and there are many forms of meditations. Anything that basically lets you loosen your attachments to what you're wanting or what you're believing, that is what I call inner work. And by loosening those attachments, you become free on the inside, even if you can't change some of the things on the outside.
I love that. And I think that's one of the hardest things as humans is we do want to control so much outside of ourselves, and we don't have the control. Life is what it is. People are who they are, and we're all just living life. And if we could just see internally the control that we have over ourselves, what a freedom that is.
It's 100% control on the inside. I mean, it's like you can always, I mean, maybe not 100% because sometimes you're not willing to, to step outside of your beliefs or what you're believing and thinking and wanting. But the possibility is 100% there for changing perspective, whereas it's limited on the outside. Sometimes you can change things on the outside and sometimes you can't, and you kind of have to go with the flow with that. But yeah, inner work is like your ace in the hole. It allows you to find peace no matter what's going on around you.
Can you step back and, for those that have not yet maybe watched or listened to the first episode, give us some insight into who is a highly sensitive person? What is a highly sensitive person?
Yeah, absolutely. A highly sensitive person is something that's been studied since the 90s, more or less. Elaine Aron was the pioneering researcher and still does research, and there are other researchers. And they basically defined a particular temperament that is present in some people and not present in others. It's about 15 to 30% of the population has this. It's a genetic trait, and it's characterized by four main qualities, which are, you can use an acronym to help remember. It's DOES, like the word does. D for depth of processing, O for overwhelm, because they get overwhelmed. E for emotion and empathy, and then S for actual sensitivity. And so people who have this trait process things more deeply than other people. They also are aware of more subtle distinctions in their environment. They pick up on cues, subtle social cues, subtle things when you're analyzing something. We're just aware of a lot more. And then on top of it, we process it deeper. And then as a result, we tend to get overwhelmed earlier than other people. And we also have this emotional quality where we're very empathetic and very tuned in to other people's emotions. So that's the overview of what a highly sensitive person is. You can take a test, you can find out if you are or how sensitive you are, but it is something that sheds a lot of light on some of us who have this trait and maybe have been thinking there's something wrong with us or it's all stress related problems, when in reality, some of it is just our nature. We just have to build for depth, not speed.
I like the way you put that. And I agree. We did talk about that before, about the fact that we're not broken. And it's quite often we do think there is something, really wrong with us, with a variety of things that we see within ourselves or what other people have told us about ourselves that aren't necessarily true. But as a highly sensitive person, I would think understanding that isn't a negative at all. It can really be such a compassionate way to live your life, understanding that you are an HSP. Would you agree?
I would agree. In fact, that's why I call understanding what it means to be a highly sensitive person one of the 3 pillars of stress management for highly sensitive people. Because when you understand it, you stop blaming yourself and you start honoring the trait and you start finding self-acceptance, self-compassion. So it's just foundational for coming to a place of peace if you happen to be a highly sensitive person. Because we're a silent minority. We're like unseen and we're just like 20% of the population. So it's a lot of people. It's not, the world isn't geared for highly sensitive people. And so we kind of internalize a certain shame sometimes that we're not good enough or that we're too sensitive or there's something wrong with us.
So, where does this take us into the outer work? Explain that.
Yeah. So, I mentioned three pillars. One is understanding what it means to be an HSP. Another is outer work, and another is inner work. So those 3 are what I consider to be the foundation for dealing with and removing stress from a highly sensitive person. So outer work is all the things that you can change. And when you look at it, there are lots of things that you can change. Now, a lot of stress management in general for people focuses on this kind of outer work, things you can do to help improve your life. And I have a little bit specific take on it for highly sensitive people, because take, for example, the foundations of health, which are like rest and movement and healthy eating and routines. So for highly sensitive people, we need more rest than other people. And the researchers suggest that 8 to 10 hours of rest, of sleep, or being on the bed for a highly sensitive person is very normal and maybe needed. So looking at how can you improve your sleep hygiene? I like to create a wind down routine in the evening. First of all, the whole evening is kind of a wind down, but then especially the last half hour before bed, I lie on the floor, I put my legs up, I listen to a audiobook or a music or something, and I do a little bit of massage, like just massaging different, like basically over my whole body. I use a little uh, something from Chinese medicine. It's called, and I'm going to forget the name right now, but anyway, it's like basically scraping your skin lightly with with the side of your hand, and just going over the whole body, the face, the scalp, the legs, the feet. And I find it just takes a lot of that tension out, just the physical tension out. And so then when you get into bed, you're in a less hyped up state than if you've been on your screen right to the last minute and then, try to go to sleep. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So this is what I mean by like outer work, like actually setting up your life so that it works for you, finding out the kinds of exercise that works for you. I know this is like where you come in. Yoga is amazing.
Your life, your way, though.
but in your own way, right? Yes,
Yes.
exactly. So, and that's the way I love to do it. Is there's no one prescription for this is the right way to have your day or this is the wrong way. It's more like here's a bunch of tools, here's a bunch of ideas, and you may have your own ideas. And I just want you to find a way that works for you and keep exploring. Be a student, be your own researcher, and see if you can find uh, a balance in your day. And that includes the kinds of foods you eat or when you eat. I happen to like smaller meals more often. So I have dinner, I have breakfast at 9, lunch at 12, a snack at 3, and then dinner at 6:30. And that works for me. Other people, they have a different routine. So it's about listening to yourself, similar to inner work, but starting to involve some of the outer parts of your life as well.
Yeah, I find what you're saying, and I can understand why it's hard dealing. I mean, I'm a human. I live here on the planet. I have the exposure to all the conditioning as we all do. And society's conditioning is so hard because 3 meals a day, or this one over here will say, yes, the mini meals. And there's so much out there that tells us how we should do. And the struggle part of it is that those things don't fit everyone, and there's so much out there, especially in the way of nutrition or even exercise, that this is what you should do. This is what in your body, your experience of life, your journey, everything is different than everybody else's. So I like what you're saying, because I say the same thing too. I like to think of it as we give these suggestions, these ideas, and I say it's to spark your own thinking. Feel free to try something that I'm suggesting, but see how it feels for you. And it might, I hope, allow you to be curious and to be courageous enough to be creative and try and see.
Yes. Yes.
So I think what you're saying, it really comes back to listening to yourself. And it's so hard when everything, all the noise is telling you have to do things this way.
Yes.
How do you
Yes.
work with your clients that way to help them find that peace, and that it's okay? It's okay to break the rules. It's okay to break those seeming rules that we're supposed to follow.
Yes, exactly. First of all, I don't present them as rules because that already sets us up as like, oh my God, I have to follow the rules and to get what I came for and all of that.
I'm pro rule breaker.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pro
Your
rule
life, your
breaker.
way. I am too. So, like this is the way I like to think of it is we are our best teacher. Our experience is our best teacher, but we don't know all the possible things that we can try. So, exposing ourselves to lots of different things, trying different things, experimenting, and then through trial and error and some guidance, you end up finding what works for you. And this is the opposite of when somebody is a teacher and like says, this is the way and everyone should do this, or a fad, where it's like, if you eat this way, then you're going to, whatever, just be so healthy or lose this weight or whatever. Like this is outward directed. And what I'm talking about here, even though it's outer work, it's inward directed. It's in communication with myself and my experience. And when you do that, when you test your own experience and check things out for yourself, that's when you find what really works for you. And notice it's not always once I found it, it stays the same. Like it works great for a while and then something else, it changes. Like my need in the different seasons are different times a day are different times of life are different, and
And
just
you just become
different.
different.
You're,
We become
you're always
different.
changing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's it. That's the only really like secure way to have a sense of balance. And outer work is about balance as much as possible. So when I'm checking with myself, then I can go with the flow as my life changes and my needs change instead of being locked into a rigid kind of system.
Oh, we are so much alike in the way we teach and perceive things. Part of what I find is also aligned with what you're saying is, for me, is yoga. To see, and I love, and if this is your yoga, please embrace it, love it, enjoy it. But for me to see, excuse me, a lot of people in a class, and the teacher instructor is guiding them to be in this specific pose where they all should look alike. I find that to be very unhealthy. Not true for every individual in the room. And if you're trying to force yourself into a pose or into a diet or into any other type of movement or routine that doesn't serve you, how is that going to heighten the anxiety of an HSP?
Yeah. No, it's going to be, if you're going against what is natural for you, then you're going to feel that. And we're very tuned into that as highly sensitive people. So sometimes what the teacher is teaching is aligned with what I feels balanced and good. And so great, it feels wonderful. But then sometimes it isn't. And then I feel this strange resistance. And then I start feeling guilt because I should be doing what the teacher is doing. And why can't I do it? And then you stop paying attention to your own physical limitations. Like, I can't stretch there. I'm not capable of that much stretch there, and putting a strain there is actually going to cause damage. I actually damaged like my inner elbows, like a golf elbow I got from doing yoga, like repetitively in a class where it was the same movement every time, going into like a plank and then upward dog and downward dog, and it was the way I was doing it, and I was paying attention to do it just right, the way the teacher wanted us to. And I stopped paying attention. I ignored the signals I was getting from my body. That's the danger. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's with anything. This is just an example of where that can come up. And as humans, we want to follow what we think is supposed to be the correct way, the right way, the perfect way. And perfection is a lie. That's a whole other conversation. So how does a highly sensitive person allow themselves to step into their own outer work in steps that they can feel safe in? We've talked about the ability and the desire to feel safe in what we're doing as well in the first episode.
Yeah. I think the first step is just knowing that you're in control, that this is your life and that you're trying on things and you're exploring, but there's no right way to do it. So that's the first thing in terms of safety. And then it's like, start small and test this, and don't try to make huge changes just all at once. Move into it in a gradual way so that you can move out of it if it's not feeling right, and then pay attention to your actual feedback that you're getting from your body, from your life. Like, say you start doing a wind down routine before bed, and then you find that you just stay there awake more than ever. It's like, okay, well, something's not working about that wind down routine. Maybe it's not winding you down. Maybe it's revving you up. So what else could we do? What else could help you settle? And maybe it's something completely different. So keeping an open mind, I think, is what allows this to work in a real way. Otherwise, we just end up just becoming cookie cutter. We're doing what we think we should be doing instead of getting in touch with ourselves. So this is how outer work connects with inner work. The checking in with myself is really an inner work thing. But going back out and then trying something on, that's an outer work. And so we're building a kind of a bridge between inner and outer. And that's what allows us to become truly resilient, self-sufficient, and as healthy as possible.
Coming up with so many questions as I'm making notes. um, okay. Question number one, just to touch on when you're saying if that doesn't work, if you're creating a routine before bed that's keeping you awake, exactly. Don't just, well, that doesn't work. I'm just going to do what I've done. Back to that, being curious, give yourself some grace and reach out, reach out and have a conversation with you, or just kind of see what other alternatives there might be. When you're setting up these new routines, you're trying something new, and you are not living alone in your home. You have family members there who are not walking the same path as you are. How does it affect communication when you're trying to find that balance between inner and outer?
Yeah, this brings in another area of balance, which is the balance between my needs and the needs of my family. And so if I was just living alone, I would just focus on my needs and I would take care of those needs as best I could using just what we've been talking about. But when I'm living with other people, then there's another factor, which is also important. Part of my quality of life depends on communication and connection and a sense of camaraderie that happens in doing things that aren't exactly perfectly aligned for balancing me. So, for example, I grew up, luckily, for some reason, my parents didn't have a TV and we just never got one. And so I was really enjoyed not having a TV. My default is not having a TV. But my partner and his mom love watching TV. Like they grew up with TV. So for me, I would rather spend an hour reading in the evening or just relaxing in some other way. But what really feels right to me is to be with the family. And so we watch a show. We spend an hour and we watch a show every evening before I go and get ready for bed. So this is compromise. And I think it's an important part of how you manage your routines, how you build your routines. Like try something out, see how it works for you and see how it works for your family, and then adjust and keep that communication going. Now, the more communication is a big part of it, because when you are also like, there are some hard needs that highly sensitive people have, which, for example, more sleep, we need alone time more than other people. So we have to communicate that. When you say, like, I just need more sleep or I just need some more rest, in a way that's non-threatening, or not like it's like I'm leaving you, or it's your fault that I'm not able to get the sleep I need. Like if you do it in a gentle way where it's like, I want to be as present as I can be when I'm available, and what helps me do that is to take the time to rest or to have this a little alone time. Most of the time, people are very accommodating when you can communicate like that. So this is a whole nother dynamic. We're not living in isolation, most of us. And so keeping these channels of communication open and doing some compromise are essential as well.
That was my next question, because if you're an HSP, but your partner or whoever, your loved one in your home is not, then I would think that it is important to have the family members understand who and what an HSP is and why and how, and whatever questions they have to help them understand helps the overall energy of the family work better as a
It's
whole.
very helpful. It's very helpful. It's like, if you know that the other person is an HSP, or if they know you're an HSP, then they kind of get an understanding. It's not your fault. This is just the way you're built. The only word of caution here is that sometimes you can use the word HSP so much that it becomes like a weapon almost, in a weird way, where it's like, oh, that's because I'm HSP. They're like, everything's because you're HSP. Like, enough already, and they can get frustrated with that. So there's a fine line between explaining that this is the trait and then using it as a crutch in a way that they will end up getting tired of hearing about that crutch. It's not that HSP is a crutch, it's that how you use that term. So my favorite way of communicating with family is, they know I'm an HSP. We've had that discussion, so that's out in the air. But when it comes to actual decisions, I'm like, no, I just feel like I'd like to go to bed early, or I just need some alone time. And I don't mention HSP. It's just my experience. So again, instead of referring to something outside, like a label HSP or something that's, is not me, I refer to my experience. And when I do that, you can't argue with that. Like, oh, I'm just really tired, I'm going to go to bed early. Like, okay, that's all.
Statement.
That's it, right? Exactly. So some of my thoughts on that.
I know your steps that you use, and you work with Byron Katie's techniques. How do the techniques that you use offset? Because our subconscious, which I love to call our warrior, is there desperately trying to protect us, which quite often that protecting us is keeping us in this safe little box or room, or however you choose to see it. So how does the techniques work when you're working with a client to help them work through that warrior protection, that creating new routines is kind of scary?
Yeah, say more
That their
what you
voice
mean
is
by
going to be
the.
yelling, no, 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 don't do that.
Yes, right. Yes, exactly. So what the work of Byron Katie does, one of the ways I think of it is like we're playing devil's advocate with ourselves. it's a very, when I think of it that way, it's a very very, what's the word? Like safe, safe kind of situation where I'm not pushing myself around, but I'm inviting myself to try things. And if I notice resistance, then I'm stopping and I'm saying, okay, what is that resistance? What is that no, 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 no? Is that no coming from, that's really not a good fit for me, and you're trying to stretch me in a way that is probably going to be more harmful than helpful? Then I want to pay attention to that. Or is that no coming from just an old pattern of, like you say, staying small in a little box that I'm used to? And it's a fear of breaking out of that and trying something new, or just something like that. So regardless, I want to hear the no. I want to hear that little part of me that is saying, I don't want to do that. I want to embrace it, meet it with compassion, hear exactly what it has to say, write its thoughts down, and invite it to do the work, invite it to question its own thinking. And only if it sees something more expanded, then we move forward. But I always say I like to move at the pace of the slowest part of me. So if the part of me that's like digging its heels in and saying no is tagging along, then I want to check it out. Just stop. Like if I was with a child, and just say, let's get down on its level and say, what's going on? And is there any way this could work? Or is this just like, what is it? And then really listening, and at the same time challenging, but in a very gentle way, like not challenging from above, but as we talked in that last session, like letting it challenge itself. And that I find is the most effective way to work with that.
I love the way you put that. What are some other examples of routines for different parts of our life that you might share and maybe spark some curiosity and creativity?
Yeah, absolutely. So, there's a whole area of workplace stress,
Mm,
and having to manage where we spend a lot of our time. And so trying to set up routines for how to stay balanced during the workday. Been trying something recently myself, where between tasks, when I go from say 1 hour to the next hour, I just stop for a minute, close my eyes, kind of just feel my body in the chair and feel the feet on the ground, kind of, and just notice my breathing in and out for like a minute. And just, it doesn't have to change. I'm not trying to get anywhere. I'm just noticing where it's at. Maybe it's kind of tight. Maybe it's a little bigger. Maybe it changes. And that I find just gives me a little connection back to myself before I move into the next thing. Or you may have to set up your workplace in a way that respects who you are. If for example, it's very noisy, then having some kind of noise canceling headphones or earplugs. If it's a lot of distraction going on, having even like a little barrier around, like a 3-way screen around your workspace, so that you're not constantly seeing people walking past, and that distracts a highly sensitive person easily. Even lighting, like there's glasses that filter out fluorescent lighting. They use them for people with headaches sometimes, but it's also helpful for highly sensitive people. And then structuring your day so that it has time for deep work. We're good at deep work. And if it's always being broken up by lots of little email checks and people bopping in and out anytime, it can be frustrating for a highly sensitive person. Personally, I turn all of the notifications off on my computer. So when I get an email, I don't get a thing saying you've got an email. Or when I've got a text or any of that, I don't get any of those notifications. It allows me to be fully present with what I'm working on. So, that's a whole area there. Looking at, time management, work-life balance, stopping work at the end of the day. That's a big one, sometimes a hard one. I recently did a podcast on that. Of another thing I've been experimenting with is just hitting the pause button literally on my computer. Like literally, it's time to go. I may be in the middle of an email and I'm like, you know what? I'll pick it up tomorrow. And I just walk away because my mind is always thinking I have to complete something before I finish, and I need to shut everything down. I need to have a really good closure. but what if I didn't? And I've been really experimenting with that recently, and that's been very interesting. So there's so many areas where you can begin to try on different ways of approaching your life that can end up supporting you as a highly sensitive person.
Sounds like it. And I'd be curious to hear your results on that, because there are times that, yes, that I just want to get the blog written or whatever I'm working on. And other times I find that if I just come back later, my thoughts are clearer.
Yeah, that's what I find. That I've been doing it for a while now, and I come back in the morning, I can knock out those emails in no time, or I can finish that little thought, that project that I was halfway on, and I'm in a fresher state and I've had a good rest. What happens, and this is the way I've always lived my life, when I don't do that, is I just stay up a little later, I push a little harder, I don't sleep as well because I'm more wound up. Yes, I finished the project, but at what cost? The next day is almost kind of a lesser energy day because of that. So, these are countercultural. They're not necessarily intuitive. They're kind of trying on the opposite of what you might normally do. And some people have always done this, so everyone is different again.
I have a friend and mentor who brought up at one time about finding that balance between left and right brain. And if your brain is working on something that is technical, or your emails or anything of that nature, in your brain is getting, you're getting tense or was stressed or whatever you happen to be feeling, step away and do the opposite. Work the other side of your brain. And it's like you're letting the side pause, and then you're giving this side a little life. And then you can come back later and enlighten this, use this side of the brain. And I work with that sometimes because I find that has allowed me to be a little bit more, and I love the saying ebb and flow between things without being harsh on myself for not. And also, I don't want to feel like I have 6 things going at once. So it's allowed me to just whittle down and focus on smaller things.
Yeah, I sometimes call it the feeling it feels like sometimes is that I'm almost being irresponsible because I'm so hyper responsible most of the time. And this is an HSP trait. We tend to be very responsible and conscientious. And so when I'm just walking away from my work and going like, okay, that's it for today, I won't be coming back to the computer until tomorrow. It's like,
feel that pull, like, oh God, no.
what happened here? Did someone do you get out of school early? Like, what's going on?
And you survived, right? You survived.
Yeah. But the difference is my evening is so much better. I feel refreshed because I really had a break. And then when I come back, I'm enthusiastic about the next day. And what am I going to do? Oh, there's that thing. Easy win. Just going to finish that and off we go.
It's a different type of control that this sounds like you've created for you. You recognize the fact that you have that control. You're not going to die. Nothing's going to fall apart. The world's not going to end if you allow yourself to have that type of control in your day and within yourself and everything.
Yes. And it points back to, again, to inner work, because there's going to be a part of me that's saying, no, don't leave. So right. So I have to take time to be with that part again and just be like, okay, now what are your fears? If you don't finish this project now, it's never going to be finished, or you're going to lose momentum. You won't remember where you were. Like, these are resistance thoughts that I can question, that can open up again the willingness to try it and experiment and then find out what really does work.
How does this, go ahead. How does this fit in? And I don't know if this goes with the sensitivity side, but I have found that if I have a whole lot to do, whether it be at home or work, sometimes I just won't do anything. I just freeze and I won't do anything.
Yes.
So I've learned to tell myself that the laundry only takes you 5-10 minutes to fold and get it done and get it put away. The dishes only take this many minutes to do. It doesn't take you 2 hours. So I've changed that way of thinking in my brain to tell myself, it doesn't take all day. It's just this little window of time. And that has allowed me to just flow easier. I mean, granted, there are days when it's like, oh my God. But other times that has helped me a lot to be able to just keep flowing from one thing to the next.
I love that. Just like really simple, Actually, what I was just going to bring up when we were both talking at the same time there is that we, like, how to simplify your life. I think that's a part of outer work here, is like, how do you look at all this bombardment of tasks and requirements and needs that are put onto your plate on a regular basis? How do you filter that out? And so it's like, I went through a thing where I put down the main things that I'm working on, the main kind of projects or interests or directions that I'm in working on. And I put them all on paper, and then I sorted them, and I said, okay, I can only do like maybe one or two like really well, like really make that my main focus. And so I put those in the category where I'm going to get an A. I'm going to try to shoot for an A on those. And then I have a whole list of maybe 5 or 6 others where there's no way I could get an A in all of these subjects at once, to use this school analogy. And so I'm like, I'm actually going to shoot for a C. Like, actually, that's my goal, is to be like, if I start getting to a B level, I'm doing too much with that.
And then you're going to shoot for the A.
Right? Because that's my nature. So I just pull it back. And then I have some that are like, we're going to shoot for a D or an F. We're actually trying to fail or trying to not do those. And this gave me like this feeling of, I really only have one or two things that are really important for me to do. And then, yes, there's always little responsibilities that I have to do around the edges. That's part of living. But it's not like all of that plus 10 major projects at the same time. And so when you do that, then it feeds into what you were just talking about. You have less pressure on your time, and it allows you to flow from one thing to the next in a much easier way. Now, the nice thing about what you said is that that will work even when you have too many different things to do, even if you are overloaded. If you actually just take one and then do the next and then do the next and then check back, maybe prioritize. Am I still working the most important things? Okay, what's the next most important thing? Next. And it keeps you just flowing in a linear way when the world wants you to bifurcate into a million different directions at once.
I like your alphabet comparison. And Kathy Heller, who was the person that I learned from and how to start a podcast. And it was very over. I was like, oh my God, what makes me think I can do this? I don't even remember how I got, just universe led me to her post or whatever. One thing led to another. But anyways, what I learned that I've carried over, and it reminds me of your ABC reminded me of it, that she said, be a C student. Be a C student. And that way you're taking so much pressure off yourself and you're not seeking that, again, the live perfection, and just start. And it can be applied to anything. Anything that you think. I can remember when I used to, the towels had to be folded a certain way. Well, when I had little kids and they wanted to help fold, you have to release that kind of thing, and
Right.
just let them learn and help.
Yes.
But I found that C student did a lot for me to look at it from, not just constantly do a lousy job, but it gives you a starting point, which can be to even any of your routines. Start as a C student. Stop looking for that A level, that perfection level that it's not real. But it gives you that grace to start out and then just keep growing,
Yeah.
keep learning about yourself.
No, I really, really love that. I sometimes say that to get from 0 to 99%, which is like almost perfect, it takes as much effort to go from 99% to 100%, which you can't ever reach anyway, as it does to get from 0 to 99%. So that perfection part, like that part where we're striving for 100% or even just 90%, is the amount of effort needed for that is way above what is actually needed. What's a passing grade? It's like, what, 60% or something like that, usually in most schools. So that's still passing. You can still get a degree and have only gotten D's, and it's still actually, you still know a lot. So we have a prejudice in our world, and especially as highly sensitive people, that we need to do it really well. And if you can just slack that off a little bit, like I say, be irresponsible, be a C student, however you want to think about it, that's going to open up a lot of space. And it's going to make room for more fun, more rest, more play, more creative flow, all of those things.
And who defined perfection? Who defined what is that 100%, that again, that's another whole conversation.
Exactly. And now we're going back to inner work where it's like, who are you trying to please and who are you afraid of displeasing? We need to do some work there.
Yes. Well, what are some last minute thought that you'd like to share?
I think, it reminds me of my swim coach when we were young. He's like, have fun with it, and it was like, he'd give us this crazy huge job of, swimming however many miles it was. And, but he was like, have fun with it, guys. And it was always that feeling of like, we're going to explore. And I say probably swimming is not a great analogy, but I think of learning as fun. I think of learning as something that is enjoyable when you put your attention on it. There's so much to learn. There's so many different systems for finding balance. There's so much input there. Don't be intimidated by so much. Just try one and follow your heart and experiment and see if that supports you a little bit, and then try another and go deeper with one and then come back out and explore. Then when you're an explorer, you're having fun, and when you're exploring, you're learning, and you're also at the center of it all instead of making any particular teacher the center of it.
Thank you. And share your website so that people may go and find more information and take the quiz.
Absolutely. Yeah. You can go to trueinnerfreedom.com and you'll find the HSP stress test there. And you can also find out about my HSP Inner Freedom program, which is a 6-month program built around these 3 pillars that we've been talking about here.
Wonderful. Please reach out to Todd. And again, trueinnerfreedom.com, correct?
Yes.
And take the quiz. It's a pretty cool quiz. Todd, thank you so much. You've given so much information. Remember, if you did not watch or listen to the first episode, go back and check that one out. And reach out to Todd again if you have any questions, want more information, learn more about yourself in the process. But I want to thank all of you for listening and for being a part of the Your Life, Your Way community. And if you think this episode or any of the episodes are going to help someone that you know and love, please share, follow, subscribe, whole 9 yards. And I want to say, please, 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 I hope that you're taking steps to live your life your way. I wish you a whole lot of peace, many blessings, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you again for being with us. Bye-bye now.